Hi, Larry here. Oksana and I interviewed a CEO of a forward-thinking wellness company that will change the way you look at your health. Now, before I take you to the interview, I'd like to explain the importance of what we're about to share. You see, most gurus and experts love to tell you what to do based on what works for them, but you're not them. And many follow dogmatic diets that just don't serve them, and it's really, really unfortunate. Now, Oksana and I share our knowledge with understanding that you are an individual and your body chemistry is unique to you. Our mission and goal is to help you understand your personal health needs. And I believe that as we move forward into the new paradigm of health, we will be empowered with the tools to understand our personal health better and act on that knowledge. One of those important tools is a blood test. It's literally a roadmap to a longer life, more energy, and better overall health. Now, before we started our 30-day cleanse, we did a blood test because it was really important for us to understand what biomarkers showed. The test would reveal if there was any dangers of doing the cleanse and what we would need to focus on, if anything at all. Now, we've been using blood tests to monitor our health for quite some time now, and we use Dr. Karen Vieira's blood test results decoded to understand what we're looking at. It's really awesome. And recently we came across a revolutionary new tool that is a game changer in the wellness world. It's called WellnessFX, and it monitors your blood test markers for you. Instead of me telling you about it, let me show you.
Hey guys, welcome to my WellnessFX backend. I just logged in and this is the page that greets me as soon as I log in. Let me give you a little bit of a tour. On the left here you can see the health categories that I've tested for. I have the metabolic, the liver, kidney, electrolytes, bone, blood, vitamins, and minerals. On the right here is the information that I put in when I took the questionnaire upon registering for WellnessFX, and I also have some other answers to questions around conditions, family history, lifestyle, and diet. And the reason I have these is because once I take the test, I have the option to get on with a practitioner and speak to them about my blood test. So before I even get on with a practitioner, they know my conditions, family history, lifestyle, diet, so I don't have to tell them. They're already in the know. So basically up here, I have a little button to click, and I'll show you what that looks like. So once I click that here, it's going to take me to an area where I can actually choose either a practitioner that is a physician, nutritionist, or a dietitian. I could scroll through, look at the person's bio, what their specialties are, sports, athletic, diabetes, whatever it is, and choose the one that is great for me. And you choose 40-minute consult here that I have, and I schedule that and put in the time that's convenient for me, and I'm good to go. So let's take a look at my results here. So let's go back to the page, and what we're looking at here is are my results. So it's easy to see where I fall. The green stuff, that means I am good. Anything that's red or orange, that means I need to take a look at it, and I can quickly see if I'm borderline in any of these biomarkers. And here's what's cool. I've only taken one WellnessFX test. As I continue to take tests, what's going to happen is, see right here I'm borderline, so there's a 203 on my cholesterol. The next test I take, it's going to have another value here, and it's going to progress as I take more tests, and I'm going to see a trend, right? So it's going to look something like this. This isn't mine, this is just an example to show you guys. So you'll see a trend, and it's important because you can see patterns in your health, right? And when you see patterns in your health, you can take action to correct them. So that's really, really key. And as we go down, you see other test results. I'm mostly in the green, but there are certain things that are of concern to me, and that I believe the cleanse that we did fixed. And I'm going to get those results shortly and compare where I was before the cleanse and where I will be after the cleanse. And I recommend that you do that whether you're cleansing or not. Also here you can see that I'm borderline. Even though I'm in the green here, I'm borderline, right? So that's important to know, because even though it shows green, it might be a factor in my health. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what you can expect once you get into the WellnessFX backend and take your test. Thanks.
How cool is that? I recently took another test that I'm waiting to get uploaded so I can see the before and after cleanse results, and I'll share that with you soon. I asked the CEO of WellnessFX, Jim Kean, if he would jump on a Skype call and answer some of our questions for us. And I'm excited to say that he agreed. And what follows is the interview. Hi, Jim. Thank you for joining us and chatting about WellnessFX. I'm really excited to have you here.
Oksana, really great to meet you too.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right into it. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to starting up WellnessFX.
Sure. So I graduated from business school in 1991, and I went to work for a medical device company, and we were doing installation of what's called the Ilizarov procedure, which is an externally fixated frame that you'd move apart a fracture to grow a human limb out. And you could grow about 1 inch a month. And we had a device that was a robot that you could attach to this frame, and it would automatically gradually move it out like 1 micron a minute when it was installed. And so it was pretty leading edge stuff. We grew some limbs out 8 inches. And I was the first installation tech because I ran the factory. So I wrote up the user manual, the doctor manual, and then I went to go into the surgery and actually program the robot to grow the limb out. And the thing that really struck me is after my first surgery, I walked outside and the family's waiting there, and they came up and spoke with me and said, "How's my son doing?" And I said, "Well, great, he's going to do really well." And it turned out they didn't know anything about the procedure, and nobody had told them. They just said he was going to have surgery. And so I thought, wow, they don't understand how the surgery works. They're not going to take care of the wounds and the pins, and then it'll fail, and they may blame my device. So I actually spent an hour educating them on the procedure, how it worked, how to be successful as a patient, and that got me interested in consumer health. And then I ended up becoming president of that company and sold it. And so afterwards, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and worked for a consumer reference CD-ROM. And there was we sold 6 million of these every year. It was the Mayo Clinic's Family Doctor. It was the most popular title. And we were bought by a large German publishing company, and they asked me, "So what should we be thinking about?" And I said, "You know what? All these press CD-ROMs are going to go away. They're going to sell shrink-wrap software because the internet. Netscape had gone public that year. Internet is a passing phase. We're not going to do that." So that was a great career decision, kind of point of fact. And so I left, and I started Sapient Health Network, which became the consumer side of WebMD. And what we did was organize these communities around disease groups based on mapping out the anthropology of that disease group. Like, what 20 words does a breast cancer patient learn when they become sick and enter into the tribe of breast cancer patients to be successful? Because if you could find like a tribal elder who had survived breast cancer, you'd be far more successful. So we got really good at that. We introduced 20 groups over 4 years, had 500,000 registered users, and then merged with WebMD. And then I was the first EVP of their consumer division. And then I was a VC, a venture capitalist last decade, and an investor. And in 2008, I went in to get a blood test. And I called my doctor and said, "Hey, you know what? I want to get a more expanded panel." And he said, "Well, you have to come in and talk to me." And I thought, that's ridiculous. I know more about health than most consumers who I know and all the things I've done. But all right. So I took my busy day, went in, sat down. He had 7 minutes for me. He looked at me and he said, "You know what? I'm not going to order these markers for you." And I was astounded. I said, "Why not?" And said, "Well, first of all, I don't think you need to see this information. And secondly, I don't know how to interpret most of these markers because standard 15 you get in your physical are all that I focused on for 20 years. And I'm not up to date on a lot of these other ones." So at that point, I thought, well, I'll just go buy it. And it turned out it's illegal in most states to directly buy diagnostics. And yet it kind of offended me because it's my biology. Right. Yeah. I should be able to look at my markers, and it's no more complex, I think, than buying a really big flat screen TV or a car and looking at 17,000 choices. So to me, that's the barrier I wanted to break down and make it accessible. The other thing I really came to realize is 90% of the volume that labs run are the top 20 markers. So those are really cheap. All the other markers that are far more predictive, some of them go up to thousands of dollars at the time. And because there's no volume, the labs can't buy big ranges of chemicals to actually the reagents to surface the results of the markers, so they're super expensive. So I thought, a really disruptive company, if it aggregated a big audience and made these markers as commonplace as like total cholesterol, could drive the cost way down and actually democratize them for other people. So that's kind of what got me going. I wrote up a business plan in 2010, got first financing around that. And I also decided I was going to enable doctors who wanted to, and practitioners who wanted to be involved in integrated medicine so that it could be a screen share like this. So the two things: quick, easy, efficient, cutting-edge diagnostics available, no brain damage, as cheap as possible, and the ability to buy 15-minute increments of people that you would, in a social networking way, share your results with, that you could hire or fire because they're your team. So that's
awesome. So basically, you're taking the science that wasn't easily available to doctors or to people, making it more available for people to get and empower themselves to basically analyze their own health and find the markers that normally they wouldn't even see. Is that pretty much the philosophy?
And what's interesting is I do think there's kind of a little bit of elitism in kind of some of these markets where there's this belief that only if you're super educated or smart are you interested in your health. And yet in the 90s, I used to see women who barely finished high school with breast cancer all of a sudden sit down because they had breast cancer, get focused, read up on it. They got smarter than their doctors because they cared more about it. And so I don't think there is an intelligence problem for 90% of consumers. I think there's an access and communication problem and a design issue too. So you need to be able to bring in masses of data, surface it in a way that you can instantly look at, not ranges and numbers, but maybe colors, graphs. Also, I think this focus on single data points is a trap, in that you should actually be focused on creating trends. Because when you can see if a trend is going up, that's great. But at one point in time, over 2 years, to get, say, total cholesterol, what's that mean? Did you eat a lot of bad food that month and the rest of the time you've been good, or vice versa? So to me, there's a couple themes here. It should be organized. It should be easy to look at. It should be put automatically into trends and other things that humans naturally gravitate to as far as consuming information.
Absolutely. Are you aggregating the data as well?
Yes.
So across the board, you're aggregating everyone's data and then correlating it as far as like seeing.
We actually see ourselves as a large-scale disaggregated clinical trial. We have some really interesting profiles now after 2 years. Like I myself am customer number one. I have 11 data points in 150 biomarkers. And I also concurrently, we've recorded at each cycle what I consume in each testing cycle, because I always have a couple biomarker projects per testing cycle because I'm always focused on the ones that are worst performing. So I can literally show my markers moving because I then change my program nutritionally or lifestyle-wise around the latest test results. And what's interesting is because you have a new crop of blood cells every 100 or 110 days, you literally can measure yourself, settle on a plan, adopt that plan, which is usually some form of targeted nutrition, and then watch your markers move if you observe that. So to me, that's really it's really an awesome just viewpoint on how plastic your biology is.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting.
Fascinating. Well, we had a pleasure to actually go behind the scenes and do the biomarkers and do all the testing and get like a full picture of what is going on inside, which is amazing. Like, it is very engaging and it's in digestible pieces. There's no like confusion. It's very easy to read. So I love that part about it. I haven't found anything else that is like this out there.
And we did it while we were cleansing. So we did it before we cleansed, so we got an idea of where we were. Yeah, and then we did another one right after. So we,
really excited for you. It's always really cool to do a test and then see how
see what changed.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because most people, when they cleanse, they don't do that sort of thing. They just, I'm going to jump into the cleanse, but they have no idea where they're driving or what they're doing it for, or what should
be implementing during the process.
Well, that's why I resonate with your philosophical approach of your curated, here's my point of view is, or our point of view is that it can't just be belief, right? If you don't measure it, you can't intelligently apply tools and tactics and change it.
Exactly. Yep. Well, we know that you have some cool people behind the scenes. Can you tell us more about your team?
Yeah, so Brent Vaughn is my co-founder, and he actually does the science side. I can wave my arms around and throw a lot of terms around, but he actually understands it to a really just deep degree. He's got 25 years in personalized medicine, health, focused on diagnostics. And so he's pretty much been on almost every wave of complex biological measurement. And it's interesting. We have constantly now people bringing us new biomarkers and new means of testing, some super exciting things, just the pace of scientific discovery. And he constantly is sorting that out. And we always go through this approach of, do we like this marker? Mm-hmm. Can you measure it accurately? And if you can measure it accurately, are there things that you can do to reprogram it? And so that's kind of our criteria, that we always look at new proposed markers and whatnot, because if it's too expensive, it may, some of these things are tens of thousands of dollars each, but will come down the cost curve, so we'll wait until that happens. Mm-hmm. Secondly, do we like the testing approach? So, for example, one test that we have gone back and forth on is cortisol, because it's incredibly difficult to get an accurate measurement. A lot of times the distribution exceeds the mean. Statistically, so we don't feel comfortable about introducing tests like that. And then thirdly, if you measure something that you can do nothing about, that doesn't seem to really be productive. Yeah. So so Brent administers that process, and he gets to see some really interesting things too. John Binder has been in kind of not as much science, but our VP marketing, and he has been in the area of introducing new exercise methodologies and training and whatnot, pretty cutting edge stuff. And he's been really awesome to work with as far as our audience development. Our medical director, Murdoch Kalehi, is also a really well published author of kind of what he calls the dummies books for cholesterol, things like that. But he also, under a pseudonym, published a book of all the weird things he'd ever seen in emergency medicine, because he's an ER doc. Some very strange things present themselves on a daily basis. Our advisory board is everybody who we try to pick doctors and scientists who have this kind of system biology approach to life. They're not reductionist. Our Michael Davidson of University of Chicago is the world's renowned thinker and thought leader on preventative cardiology. Bruce German out of UC Davis is basically the godfather of nutrigenomics, the whole rising, how do you reprogram your genome and then your outputs based on what you consume. So yeah, so we have some awesome people in our bank of doctors and practitioners. Yeah. Usually we attract people to our network who are very interested in this area and are open to learning, because we absolutely insist that each profession treat each other with respect and work as a team, because our responsibilities to our users, and we don't think users should have to adjudicate conflict, for example, between dueling professionals. So doctors can't say, oh, nutrition is crap, or naturopaths are quacks. And conversely, you can't have a naturopath saying, Western medicine is totally terrible. Everybody has to work as a team, and we force each profession on credentialing and onboarding. If you're a doctor, you have to listen to our best nutritional consults, because we record everything for training and also quality. And so that's how we onboard our practitioners.
That's awesome. And I noticed that you also had Tim Ferriss, who actually inspired me to create our blood testing program, because following him, he's just like the epitome of testing. He tests everything. And he made me sit up and question, like, wow, am I really testing everything that I'm doing? I think I'm healthy, but am I really? Which kind of leads me to the next question. Like, a lot of our people are healthy. They eat healthy. They live healthy. They feel really good. would you say those people should go get blood tests?
Absolutely, because the thing about your body is a really poor feedback mechanism. First of all, okay, so on the surface, for example, I'm a world ranked CrossFit athlete, and I have 8% body fat. So if you look at me, you're going, wow, that guy's really healthy, and I work out like crazy. I eat really clean and well. But if you look at my markers, when I first did this, I did the more extensive panel. So out of 150 biomarkers, I had 60 that were in the red.
Wow. Oh, wow.
You know, and so what it turned out, though, is I have a genetic subtype that doesn't process B vitamins efficiently. So I have to take 10 times as much B vitamins, I discovered, as a normal person to get the same effect. If your B vitamins, for example, get out of whack, your lipids spike and your inflammation goes up. So a couple corrections for me. Out of 150, I maybe have 5 red biomarkers, and they're kind of really minor ones that I'm not that concerned about. So definitely, you need body's really poor feedback mechanism, and the stakes are super high, because what happens is when you hit your 40s, a lot of really good kind of youth promoting protective genes start switching off, and genes that cause aging cascade and kind of descent into aging start switching on. So if you can figure out how to program yourself by avoiding, say, your weaknesses, by strengthening those for whatever you're deficient in, you can actually bend your aging curve. But you have to do it when you feel really good and starting to look at it, versus saying, wow, all of a sudden kind of my weaknesses have accumulated over life, and now they're all starting to kick in.
They're all showing up. Exactly.
And how often would you say to get a blood test?
I believe you should do it every 4 months, but I think you can get by twice a year. But every couple years is just not adequate, because it's a single data point and you don't have trending. And really, you can check in and do it, say, month 4 after you've done your program, and you really get some great insights. For example, with me, when I started out, my vitamin D was super low. And so I set a goal of getting up to in the 60s on vitamin D. And so as I was going along, I kept just gradually, incrementally moving it up. And I got to the high 40s, and my inflammation actually dropped. And all my other markers started really performing well. And then when I got up to the 60s, though, turns out that's too much vitamin D for me. My body, because if you overshoot it, then it's a U-shaped curve. So if you're too low, you need to drive it down, but at a certain point, too much causes the same thing on the other side. So you need to find your sweet spot, and it's different for every single person. For me, I've found that if I can titrate my vitamin D right around 49 to 52, right around there, and figure out how to metabolize it. So I take about 5,000 units of vitamin D, and I also discovered to make it super efficient, I need to take it with fish oil, because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. So that's how I found my sweet spot on that marker. And now that I know that, I put it to bed, because I just know where I have to be. But you can't do that unless you are consistently.
Exactly.
And one of the really cool things about WellnessFX is, like, when you take one test and go to the next test, there's a little line that you see, and you could go back, 5, 10 tests and see where your progression is for that biomarker that might be off completely or borderline, and make sure you're correcting it and seeing the pattern based on what you're doing.
Yeah, what else it does is it allows you to actually switch off of things to see, like last year, midsummer, I'd driven my cholesterol, everything down into the low greens, even my fractions, right? And so I was challenged by a doctor. He said, there's no way you achieved all that with nutrition and just kind of balancing. And I said, I'm fine, because really, having your cholesterol get out of whack for a couple cycles isn't going to kill you. So I just said, watch this. I went off of everything I was on. And, I kept my diet and my exercise clean, but I just stopped the supplementation. And the next testing cycle, I had this huge rebound, like 4.5 months later. So I then went and showed him, and I said, see, I actually know how my body works.
Right. And
fun.
to have that control is so empowering.
Exactly.
You don't have to rely on some doctor to tell you yes, no. You know for a fact that you're good.
Plus, you never know if they actually reading it properly, or do they understand that, or it's your body. You know what feels good for you. So it's all individual, and that's the power of it, to know all those numbers.
Yeah, I had a really great scientific friend of mine in the 90s. When I talked to him about statistics, or I said the average American, he said, average. So the average American has one testicle, half a penis, and one breast. So you can't use averages in health.
Exactly, and everyone's individual. I mean, it's so individual, and they like to
it's all generalization.
Yeah, so they love to generalize and put everyone in the same basket. But,
well, and that's why people get into such fierce battles over diet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, diet. I've come to the conclusion I'd rather talk about religion or politics before diet.
Yeah. Well, they fall in the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody will have really good results with an approach, and then they're convinced that everybody else should be doing what they're doing.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, and that may not be the case. Like a lot of the paleos, I follow paleo, so because that works for my body and I get great results with it.
Yeah.
But there's actually subsections of paleo. There are certain people who don't metabolize fats that well, who should be a variant of that called lean paleo.
Mm-hmm.
So doing one size fits all is not a recipe.
Well, that's what we're trying to tell everyone as well.
Yeah.
It's a very individual approach, and the dogmatic thinking around diet is not to be followed, because it, like you said, it is like politics and religion, and people they get on their soapbox and said, hey, this works for me and you should do it too. And people are like, okay, well, let's go. And they have no idea whether it's good or not, and that's why these scientific approaches to testing and really getting the numbers is so key and crucial.
I also think it's something you should do your entire life. And the reason is that you enter into different biological states as you progress. Like when you're a male and about 40, your production of testosterone starts to drop. And that is one of the things that you need to keep, especially your free testosterone, at a reasonable level, because it's actually protective against inflammation and heart disease. Mm-hmm. And when that starts dropping, it actually has a profound influence on kicking off your aging cycle. So the longer that you can bend that curve and keep your levels at the right amount that are fairly youthful, and that actually keeps your metabolic, your cardiovascular, lean muscle mass, the whole range of things in line and order. And same thing with women when kind of advent of menopause and whatnot. Huge things to think about, because if you maintain hormone balance in a with bioidentical matching and really it's complex stuff, so that's why you need a team. Mm-hmm. But if you do that, you bend your aging curve.
Yeah. And that's what we all want.
Yeah.
Well, another cool thing that I really like about WellnessFX is that you have after you have all your tests, you have your results uploaded online, you have an option to have a free consultation. And I love the list of people that you guys have there, because you can choose either consultation with actual naturopath or a fitness coach, or different whatever opinion or whatever process that you follow, routine that you follow, people that you trust. You have that option. So it's not just like one, okay, this is the general doctor. Most people want to maybe have alternative approach. So it's good to have that option. I love that you guys do that.
And you don't have to cheat on your doctor by saying, oh, I'm seeing a nutritionist on the side, because it's all out in the open, because everybody in there, you can have multiple voices, and they have to resolve it and come back to you with an integrated opinion. And literally, you're absolutely right. You maybe have a wellness coach or coordinator, thanks to my vision of the future going forward. You'll have somebody who's kind of your advocate, who also is almost like your personal trainer for your biomarkers. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, I think you'd really do well this cycle. Maybe once a year, you should talk to a sports nutritionist, or maybe more frequently than that, or maybe an anti-aging doctor every 2 years to kind of check in and say, hey, it looks like your genetic health is pretty good. You've slowed your aging curve. I like the way your markers work. I posted this up so the rest of your team sees that, and I'll see you in 2 years. But you'll be seeing these other people more frequently. So it's pretty exciting when you think about 21st century medicine and health.
Yeah. And it brings it back to us and us being able to be empowered to take control of our own health. So as far as one of the big questions that we get is, what test should I take? And will a consultant that I could talk to, will they recommend other tests? And I guess the first question is, where should people start?
So we put so the way we started, we never used to sell a low-cost alternative. We started out with the big test, the 160 biomarkers, had a mix of genetics, blood chemistry, some metabolites, things like that. And but it wasn't price accessible. Although when we started, it was a $4,500 test, and we actually got it driven down below $1,500 just by having a little bit of volume. Yeah. And we think over time, what happens, more and more tests will become cheaper and cheaper, so you'll have more access. But we started looking at. I said that we record all the conversations. Mm-hmm. We actually use those for study and figuring out what things got the best results out of practitioners and consumers communicating, because we wanted to figure out how to make the conversations as good as possible and as efficient and productive. And so literally what used to be a 1 hour discussion for us in the 20 minutes is the same, because we've a lot of the pre-registration you do as a WellnessFX consumer, you may not know this, but setting you up to have a really successful 20-minute consult. Concurrently with that, we identified the top 30 biomarkers that provoke the best conversations and answered 80 to 90% of the questions. So we see it as kind of a starter, and then over time you can add in more detailed panels. So you maybe have heart disease in your family, so we've included a couple of the subfractions in our baseline panel, so that if those pop up red, you probably should get the deeper dive cardiovascular panel. But if they don't, then you probably don't need to do that, and that saves you time and money. So our starter panel of 30 biomarkers is a great just way to start, see all the things. It covers all the body systems. There's a couple things it lacks. In female health, I'd like to see it have ferritin in there because it's a big issue for women. I'm not quite convinced TSH is the best marker in thyroid to measure. I like T3 and whatnot. Just a cost issue. But if there's a couple other things you can look at within all the markers, the way they play together, where even if TSH doesn't come up with a score that should concern you, you may say, you know what, I think that you might need a deeper dive thyroid panel because your inflammation's out of whack over here. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a trade-off between what's a good starter set of data to get you going, and what's really cost efficient for our users.
Exactly. Great. And it gives you an overview of where you're at. So it kind of gives you, an idea. Okay, this is what's happening.
Absolutely. And when you compare it to what's available right now for your annual physical, we blow that thing out of the water. I mean, if you think annual physical is about 12 markers, and nobody talks to you about it. You leave, and maybe a nurse calls you and says, "Hey, didn't see anything," or
take these pills.
Yeah, a couple things. I want you to exercise more and eat better, and I'm putting you on a drug. Very rarely do they share the actual results, and if you saw them, they're not trended. They're all numbers. So when you compare that, our 30 biomarkers, 20 minutes of time of nothing but explaining how those biomarkers work, clearly superior, and then you have the opportunity to get more time if you want and buy deeper dive panels.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you guys are starting out right now, so you're kind of in a few markets, and you're going to be expanding. I know you guys are expanding rather quickly in the U.S. Are you planning to take this global as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. We last year had probably 90% of our traffic to our site was wasted of people who started a shopping cart or wanted to buy from us, because we have to ask them their zip code. And if they're in a jurisdiction we legally can't sell in yet, then we had to tell them no. So we took their name down, and when we expand into a state, we'll send out an email to everybody who said, look, I really want to be a customer. And so in December, we added a whole bunch of states, and so we're in 16 states now. Okay. And we will be in every single state by the end of this quarter because we've started with the most difficult states legally. And then the less complicated ones, it turns out they usually are a subsection of the more complex states. So it's recursively gotten faster to onboard a new state.
If you're in an area, and I'm sure anyone that's listening right now is going to want to go and get access to WellnessFX and do it. If they happen to be in an area that's not there yet, is there anything that they could do or contact a representative or something to get?
Yeah, We actually, if they say they want to be contacted in the future, literally we'll be there really soon, and so we encourage them to register with us. Just give us their email, and we won't bombard them with like junk mail or anything like that. We'll just say, hey, we're in your area now. Let's get going.
Cool. And is there anything they could do on a community level to accelerate them getting WellnessFX? Is there anything like bureaucratically that they need to maybe contact I don't know what kind of red tape you have to go through.
No, so there's two things to think about, and this is actually an interesting illustration of how dysfunctional our healthcare system is in a lot of ways. So first of all, we talked about how it was illegal for people to buy diagnostics without a doctor ordering and releasing the results to you. Mm-hmm. So just a little bit of background so people understand how it works, because it also goes to whether there's proper safeguards in place, is when you create an account with us, your account is automatically assigned a by state ordering and then releasing physician. And then when your results get routed to the lab, we ping the lab site every day for new accounts and results to populate the accounts. Mm-hmm. But when your results come out, there's a two-stage process. The lab has a doctor who looks for what they call critical values. So if it's something like, hey, this value is so out of whack, they'll call them and say, you need to go see a doctor right now. And so that's happened once in 2,000 clients, but it worked because we had a test result in December that popped up, and it got flagged right away because it was a bad numerical value. Mm-hmm. And then we have a second line of review by our internal doctors outside of the lab that we just double check. And then once that happens, that gets released. Now, the consumer doesn't know all those steps are going on in the background, but if you get your results, it means we didn't find any critical values where we need to alert you right away. So we got that by state. The more complex part is that it's illegal for a Arizona doctor to review a California patient's chart. You have to be face-to-face and have a doctor relationship or be in the same state, which...
It's insane.
Well, obviously, Arizona has different biology and medical California.
Obviously.
Yeah. So it's the telehealth part's the complex part. Mm-hmm. And so as we go through, we figure out who's allowed to look at what data is really legally. And so we have to read the entire state rules on consumer health and medicine, and they all have different privacy rules as well. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, the two areas of telehealth and diagnostics are actually governed by 6 different federal agencies. So everything you see on our platform actually represents all of our research into how regulations work so that we could put this together in a legally compliant way.
Awesome. Wow, that's a lot of work involved.
Yeah, it's kind of boring. People don't want to hear about regulation, but that actually it causes doctor shortages in most urban areas. It causes underutilization in kind of non-urban areas. There's a whole range of, I think it adds probably 3 percentage points to our total cost of national health care just by having these bizarre state-by-state regulations. It's actually easier for us to go outside the country than it is to go into some states.
Well, having this WellnessFX as a disruptive technology is exciting because in short order, things will evolve into a state where we'll have full control, we'll have full data to understand ourselves to the nth degree. So I'm excited and I'm appreciative of what you and your team are doing. So thank you.
We all have a passion for this because we think we're democratizing healthcare. And the other thing is what gets us, if you want our futuristic approach here, is we're looking for the day when we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of mature profiles in our system, because we'll start drawing insights about, hey, everybody who has this particular biological composition who either did this food or supplement or approach got highest success doing this. Mm-hmm. And the ones that did this had low success or just things like that. Are a completely undiscovered field right now. So in a way, everybody participates with us. In the end, when we roll up all the average markers and the aggregated data, we're already starting to get just an amazing amount of insights into very specific markers that haven't been known before.
Yeah, and that sounds like good. Would you say that that's your mission and purpose around this company, is to deliver that? Yeah,
improve health, improve access.
Yeah.
I love it.
Beautiful. Well, I think on that note, I think we can invite people to WellnessFX and give it a go. I think if you leave it to your doctor, you're really challenging. Your odds are against you. So put all the odds in your favor and take action to know what's going on in your blood work. And we're going to have a link below this video, and we'll also throw one on in this video so you can go directly and sign up. And if it's not in your area, sign up and you'll be notified as soon as it is. And we're really excited to be working with WellnessFX, and we hope you take advantage of this amazing technology and team.
Likewise, it's great working with you guys. You have an awesome audience.
Yeah. And thank you, Jim, for your time and explaining. Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully that was enlightening and revealing. And I invite and encourage you to join WellnessFX so you can track your health and act on it with confidence. And as Jim stated in the interview, how you feel is a lousy measure of what's really going on inside. Below this video, click the link and give WellnessFX a go and let us know how your results stack up. We want you to experience the best health ever. So together we can take wellness back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.